Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We love having you here, and it's our mission to bring you all the latest and greatest tips, skills, and know-how to make you the best that you can be. We know that you have it in you, and we're going to show you how. Now, let's get started.
This episode is powered by Poddex.
Thank you for tuning in today. You are now listening to That Will Never Work podcast with your host, Maurice Chisholm. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Listen, I have a wonderful guest for you today. He has inspired me after doing my extensive research, hearing some other podcasts he's been on. He has been very inspirational and has had me changing my mindset as I move forward in entrepreneurship and just life in general. But one of the things that we're going to reference today, which is what you know about That Will Never Work podcast, we like to give you information on just how to continue to grow in every possible way. And I think our guest today shows that. My guest today was born with the desire to learn, to grow in every possible way. You may ask what I mean. He started his career selling janitorial services to business owners at the age of 16. I wonder what he learned or what he was going through prior to the age of 16. He met his mentor at the age of 19, which we'll be discussing today. He is a second degree black belt. He is a certified scuba diver. That's very interesting. I don't know too many individuals, that has accomplished that. He had created, designed, invented, reformulated, and or formulated over 75 products in the health and wellness industry. Listen, I'm going to tell you, his bio is rather extensive, and you have to read it for yourself, and the information will be provided for you in the description of today's episode. The desire to give back what he has been given brings us to today, where he will talk to us about the impact of a mentor, of what a mentor can have on your journey. And I bring to you today none other than GiversUniversity.com's own Mr. E.A. Csolkovits. Sir, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast and being able to share with your listeners. And I was listening to you say those kind words about me and the length of my bio, and all I can say is my bio still is not as long as my last name, so I better get to work.
Yeah, right. That's very interesting. That was, I listened to your bio. I mean, I read your bio, but, your journey has been very interesting. Very interesting. For myself, I listened to some of your past podcast interviews and things like that. And I know for myself who inspired me to move forward in life. And I see somewhere that it says, or heard somewhere where you talked about being a son of a milkman. How did that influence you to move forward, to even just hop on that train of entrepreneurship, if you will, at the age of 16?
I appreciate that, and being able to share with your listeners, and hopefully we can share them some great nuggets that will help them on their path as I was blessed and helped on mine. I live in Michigan now, but I was born and raised in the Chicagoland area, and my father was a milkman. And back then, milk was in glass gallons, and they probably switched to plastic because of how many I broke helping my father on his route, but at the ripe old age of 5 years old. But and what was interesting was, my father had his own route. He had his own delivery truck. That's what the milkman did back then. And the 18-wheelers were the only ones that were refrigerated. So every morning I would watch my father. He would get up at 3 a.m. and had this big ice pick, and he would go to these special ice houses that had literally 6-foot tall blocks of ice. And he would pull out an ice pick and start chopping up these big blocks of ice and put them on the milk to keep the milk chilled while he was delivering it. And he always said the same thing whenever I helped him, and that was numerous times on his route. He would always say, well, when we're done, we're done. And the point he was making was that, the sooner we get on with the things that we need to get done, the sooner we can do to, get into the things that we may want to do. And, and I just remember at 5 years old, him saying that over and over again to me. and I watched him not have anyone looking over his shoulder. He didn't have anyone every day saying, okay, it's 3:00, get up, he got up on his own. He went to work, and it was interesting because a few podcasts ago, I hadn't really looked at it that way before. And I realized that I had sort of lived that as a child, not having a boss telling you where to be and when to be, because I watched my father, be what I would call a self-starter in today's vernacular.
Right.
And that was an interesting, sort of living it, I guess you could say. And then at 16, I became a janitor, and I had two incredible events that really shaped my future, even to today, over 4 decades later. Those two events were pretty profound in my life. The first one was at 16, since I was able to be bonded, which means insured. And that was so that if, like, when I was cleaning a place, if my buffer hit a piece of equipment or something, the insurance company would pay for it, right?
Right.
That also allowed me to be in expensive businesses because of that insurance. And also I could be in expensive homes. And every Wednesday I cleaned the home of a lady who when I say the name, it won't mean anything to your listeners until I make the movie reference.
Right.
There was a movie out a few years back. I'm sure it'll be on for a number of years because it's actually a pretty good view. It's called The Founder. And Michael Keaton plays Ray Kroc, and it's about McDonald's.
Right.
And in the movie, what's interesting is that, first of all, I lived in that area. I lived in the greater Oak Brook area. So the McDonald's phenomenon, I personally witnessed it during my lifetime. And in the movie, Michael Keaton, who plays Ray Kroc, constantly talks to someone outside his office, this lady, and he says, June this, and she's in the whole movie. That lady, her name is June Martino. That's the lady whose house I cleaned every Wednesday when I was 16 years old.
Wow.
And for the janitorial service I was with. And here's what was astonishing to me, Maurice. For some reason, and I don't know why, I don't know where this came from, but I was really, really wrong. I thought to be successful, you had to be a jerk. You had to, be me only, me oriented, be willing to take from other people, be willing to step on them and squish them and don't give it a second notice and,
right.
And a second thought. And I don't know where that thought came from. I really don't, but that's what I was thinking. And when I met June, she was so the opposite. It wasn't even funny. In fact, it was astonishing to me how nice and approachable she was. And I thought, man, she was already an icon. When I met her, she already had the third most controlling stock in McDonald's. So, she was worth more zeros than I had fingers and toes. And I'm thinking, and I'm cleaning this $1 million mansion, back then. And she's got a Rolls Royce in the garage and a full-time maid and a full-time butler. And I'm thinking, man, people really live like this. This is crazy, And here I am, son of a milkman, already a burnt out janitor at 16, right? And so it was a curiosity to me why she was that way. I thought, this is not the way I thought wealthy people were. I thought they were jerks. And she was so approachable, so nice. So, and to show you, like, as an example, if I was buffing the floor and looking down, because I had to use special buffing pads on the floor, if I was looking down and she walked through the room, even if I was looking down at the floor, she would still say hi. Just
nice.
So approachable, so nice. And that was a curiosity. And I kept watching her and, think, what's the deal here? Why was I so far off base with what I thought? And so one day I got up the nerve. And she knew who I was because I was in there every Wednesday. And again, so approachable. So I got up enough nerve, and I'm going to go ask June Martino, the icon, the local icon for sure, a question. So I'm shaking in my janitorial boots, and I go up to her, and I said, "Hi, June." She looked at me, smiled, "Hi," And I said, "Can I ask you a question?" She said, "Sure," And I said, "Well, could you tell me about it?" She said, "Well, what's that?" And she said, "Well, the whole McDonald's thing." And so I'm not kidding, Maurice. She put her arm around me, brought me in the kitchen, and the entire day told me the entire story.
Wow.
And what was interesting was that it was weird because she, the movie came out decades later,
right.
And she actually started telling me the story the same place the movie started.
Wow.
where Ray Kroc was, Ray Kroc he was a milkshake mixer salesman, with Prince Castle, and then before he met the McDonald's brothers, and then what transpired after. And I can say this, by the way, the movie's a good view if you haven't seen it, but please keep in mind, number one, Ray Kroc was not the way he's portrayed in the movie. That's all Hollywood spin to make a bad guy and make it intriguing in Hollywood drama.
Of course.
All kinds of spin on it. But in the beginning, it says based on a true story. That's true, except it's not the true story. It's based on a true story. Big difference.
Right.
So Ray wasn't the way he's portrayed. But nonetheless, there are many events that took place that are nodded to in the movie, if you will. It's a good view. If your listeners haven't seen it, I recommend it. Just keep in mind, Ray wasn't the way he was portrayed in this Hollywood spin in there. But it's a good view nonetheless. And when she came to a part, actually that's shown in the movie, they do mention it, where June goes to Ray Kroc and says, "We have a problem, we're out of money." And she told me about that decades before the movie came out. And she told me that they made an agreement that she would work for Ray Kroc for no money, and that he would pay her in worth less than zero company stock. And that he would agree to take some of the bill collector phone calls if anyone called her and wanted money. So I just asked her, here I am in the kitchen. She even has the maid and butler bringing us food in the kitchen so she can keep telling me the story.
Right.
And I keep thinking, who's he talking to? That she's just talking to this not-no 16-year-old telling me this whole story. And I keep looking around to see, is there someone else here I'm missing or something, because I'm astonished this icon
right.
is taking this time out of her schedule to tell me this stuff, I was perplexed by that too. And so I asked her, "June, I'm a janitor. I work Friday to Friday, paycheck to paycheck. If I don't get paid on Friday, I'm not showing on Saturday.
Right.
I need that paycheck.
Right.
I live paycheck to paycheck. I need it. Why did you do it? Why did you work for nothing?" And she sat back, Maurice, and I'll never forget. She sat back, stared at me, and did this eyeball lock on me and left. I could tell she just left the room. She's staring at me, but she's gone. And I realized I had just asked this not-no 16-year-old, had just asked her a question no one else had ever asked her before. Everyone wanted to know what happened with McDonald's. No one ever wanted to know why.
Right.
And so I just asked her, why'd you do it? Why'd you work for nothing? I wouldn't have done that. I'm a janitor, right? And when she spoke, Maurice, it made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. I still remember what she said, the way she said it, and my first thought thereafter. When I asked her, "Why did you work for nothing?" when she did speak, she finally said, "Because I believed in Ray." And the way she said it made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. There was so much feeling. I could realize that was the first time she ever said that to anyone. And then my first thought after, Maurice, instantly, it was like instantaneous. I remember it. My first thought was, that's it. I need to find me a Ray Kroc.
Right.
I need to find a Ray Kroc that can put me under their wing, like Ray put June under his wing. It certainly didn't work out too bad for her. I'm cleaning this $1 million
Right.
mansion, and it was $1 million mansion. It was $1 million mansion back then.
Right.
So I'm thinking it didn't work out. That's what I know this. The only thing I know is that I don't know what I need to know. That's all I know. I don't even know what it is I don't know. I just know I don't know it.
Right.
And so I'm just thinking, if I could just find my Ray Kroc, where would I find my Ray Kroc? And I remember just throwing it out there. And then a few months later, we got a phone call to the same janitorial service while I was still working. And my boss sent me over to show some carpeting to a man that was opening a diamond store in the Chicagoland area. And I went there and met this man. We hit it off. He offered me a job. And he became the father I never had, even though I had a father. And I became the son he never had, even though he had a son. And this man became my mentor. He became the reason I became an advocate for mentors, because for your listeners who right now, whether you're working on a JOB, which I always believe JOB stands for just over broke.
Right.
If you have a JOB, if you have a JOB or you're, have a side hustle or you have your own business, get a mentor. if you don't have a mentor, in my world, we have a word for it. We call it naive.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we call it,
Mm-hmm.
because there are so many mentors that want to share. And here's the thing. There's a difference between a coach and a mentor. A coach can teach you a skill. You know, if you want to learn how to post on LinkedIn, you get a coach, they'll teach you how to do that, right? A mentor is a different thing. It's a different kind of relationship. It's more confidential. It's a more intimate relationship into why are you thinking that way? Not just that you're thinking this way. Why are you thinking that way? It's a different kind of closeness that, helps sort of rewire your head, as my mentor began to take the burnt out wires of a son of a milkman, burnt out janitor wires, and rewire those in my head. And when looking for a mentor, don't be afraid to ask one question. And the question is, can I ask what you've done? Now, that's an important question, and here's why. In my life, Maurice, I have met literally thousands of educated idiots. And these are people that have all the book knowledge.
Right.
They can spew it. They've learned it all. They've read the books. They can spew it all back at you, but they have zero execution and zero implementation skills. Simply put, they've never done it.
Right.
And because they've never done it, they don't bring with them the thing that a mentor that has done it does bring with them. And a mentor that's done it brings with them all the things that did not work. And that's where the wisdom is. The wisdom is in the things that didn't work, not the things that always did, right? And so don't be afraid to ask. And I think, Maurice, one of the reasons June took that day with me that changed my life, because, I was just, all I can tell you is there was a good thing there's no flies in the room, because my mouth was constantly open the whole time. I couldn't believe this woman's taken, this icon is taking this time. I think, Maurice, she sensed that I wasn't asking because I wanted to get close to the icon, June Martino.
Right.
I think she sensed I really wanted to know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was intriguing to me. And I think she sensed that distinction and then invested that day with me, which to me was priceless. So, and there's mentors out there, many mentors, who, number one, are able to make that distinction. They will know if you're just trying to get next to them and smooze them, or if you really genuinely want to know. But I guarantee you, once they really know and sense that you really genuinely want to learn because you want to contribute, you want to better your best, you'll be surprised, and most people are shocked at how much time they will set aside to help you and to be there for you. So I'm a huge advocate for mentoring. And if you don't have a mentor, for your listeners, get one. Begin to look for a mentor and watch how they can help you not make all the mistakes that they have made. You're going to make, we all make our own.
Right.
And my mentor had a profound impact. I can share with you just one last little story, if I can, about my mentor, and to show you what kind of person he was. I'd love to share that if I could.
So real quick, I hope that our listeners today have their pen and paper out, because there's a lot of nuggets that you are giving out today. Is really enjoyable. That's why I'm just letting you just go at it. So continue on.
Thank you. And I should have warned your listeners, I never say anything in 10 minutes if I can say it in 20. So I should have forewarned them.
Right.
Yeah. And I can get, talking, 100 words a minute with gusts of 70 miles an hour when I get going. So,
it's cool with me.
It's exciting stuff, and I'm so blessed to be able to share it with people. And I want them to know and feel, not only just hear my words, but to feel what I'm saying, that these things work, and by listening to someone who was a lot smarter than me. I only had, people I say, find your superpower. What's your superpower? And I can tell you, I only had one. And that was, I did genuinely have the ability to say, I don't know about that. Could you please teach me about that? I'd love to learn.
Yeah.
And, today, where everyone wants to be preeminent, everyone wants to be the smartest person in the room. Right. And my mentor said, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Right, correct.
Get out of there.
Correct.
Get to a room where you can learn something, and get around people you can learn from. That's what you want to do, So my mentor shared with me which is quite an astonishing story, what it was like to grow up during the Great Depression in the United States. And he said, he said it was very desperate times. He said people were jumping off of buildings because they'd lost their fortunes. He said, multi-mile long soup kitchen lines. He said more than 1 mile long to stand in line to literally just get a bowl of soup. He said it was very desperate times. And so he was walking around, he was a youngster, and he walked by a store and he saw there was a guy standing in the back of the store. So he went in just to burn the clock. And he started talking with the guy, and it turns out, he said, the guy was the owner of the store, and the store was filled with sewing machines that basically were collecting dust. And the guy said, he said, no one's buying sewing machines today because they need food. They're not buying sewing machines. They're looking for food. And he said, I'd let all my employees go because I couldn't afford them. And he said, and I paid for all these sewing machines. They're all sitting here paid for. He said, and they're just collecting dust. He said, I come in every morning just to keep an eye on the sewing machines. He said, no one's walking in the door. And my mentor had this flash in his mind, and he said, how about if I help you sell some of these? And the guy said, well, what do you have in mind? He said, well, certainly no one can afford to buy a sewing machine today. They need food. But he said, maybe they'd buy them on payments. And he said, how about if I set up a way where they can buy the sewing machines on payments? We'll split the payments ourselves. And he said, I'll back any of the sewing machines. If someone walks on someone, you won't be out any money or sewing machine. And the guy says, man, he said, do it. He said, it's more than what's moving out of here now. Not one of them's walking out of here. He says, if you sell one, that's one more than is being sold.
Right.
And so the next thing my mentor did was genius. He put together a flyer, and the flyer that he distributed had the words on it in bold, women to work from home. He told me, he never actually even caught up with the response. At no point, he never even caught up. He said there were so many responses because no one was hiring, and the fact that anyone was hiring. So he put together a way where women could work from home. He sold them the sewing machine on payments. He then gave them the patterns to make clothing with. He gave them the material to make the clothing with. Then he guaranteed he would buy the clothing from them, thus guaranteeing their income, which means they could make the sewing machine payments and have an income left over for food, and all people needed income. But he didn't end there. With that, then he bought this clothing from the women working from home, and then he sold it to stores as high quality, very deep discounted clothing that stores wanted, because all customers wanted high quality clothing, but at the very cheapest possible price. So in 18 months, Maurice, where people are jumping off of buildings because they lost their fortune, multi-mile long soup kitchen lines, in 18 months, my mentor earned $1 million.
Wow.
Now, I can share with you, and for your listeners, if they're not making it, I am one of the few people that can say, what's your excuse? Because I met the man. Who, and I know the story and he, in intimate detail. Obviously, I was just giving you the theme of the details he gave me over the whole story. And this is what he shared with me. He said, here's the moral. He said, all I did, he said, first of all, I didn't put in any of my own money. He said, I didn't. He said, I just went down the line and solved everyone else's problems. He said, I looked at the owner of the store and I thought, well, what's his problem? Well, he's got these sewing machines collecting dust. He needs to move those. So I figured in my mind, how could I help solve his problem? Then we had families needing income and money. He said, so I thought to myself, well, how can I solve their problem? Hence the women working from home. He said, and then I know stores needed good quality clothing because everyone wanted clothing that would last as long as possible in depressing times for the least amount of money. So he said, and I solved the customer's problem by making it available. He said, so I simply went down the line of each person and solved their problem. And he said, and I earned it, and that was $1 million that he earned in 18 months in depression dollar value. Today, that would easily be over 20 million. Easily. So he shared with me, here's the thing of all of that. He said, when you go through life, you're going to be tackled 1,000 times. He said, get ready for it. It's going to happen. He said, and if anyone has told you they haven't been tackled and everything's been right for them, he said, start distancing yourself now because they're next.
Mm-hmm.
He said, so, he said, they're next online if everything's been perfect for them. He said, so, but here's the thing. He said, as you go through life and you get tackled, and fortunes come and go, and fortunes come and go, and fortunes come and go. He said, I can share one thing with you that's an absolute fact. You'll never have money problems. And I said, what?
Mm-hmm.
He said, you'll never have money problems. And I said, well, how is that? He said, what you have is idea problems, not money problems. He said, every great solution came about because of a person having one idea in one person's mind. He said, every great enterprise that's ever been built began
with an idea
and can be traced all the way back to one thought in one person's mind.
Right.
An idea. He said, so when you think you have money problems, don't. And he said, when you meet people that say they have money problems, they don't. They have idea problems. And he said, he literally, and he walked me through, he said, all of these things that happened, he said, I didn't put in my own money. He said, none of that cost me any money to do all those things that I earned, that cost them to earn $1 million in the Depression when it was really hard to earn $1 million.
Most
he said,
definitely.
I just focused on everyone else's challenges and I solved their problems. So
right.
I share with your listeners, you will not have money problems. You'll have idea problems. And the fastest way to wealth is to solve as many other people's problems as you possibly can.
Wow. That's all I can say. I am speechless. I mean, I'm sitting here writing notes the whole time you've been talking, because as one of the things that you stated, coaches versus mentors and the information that they give is vastly different. I had a conversation with someone not too long ago about them having a coach versus a mentor. And one of the things that I noticed about coaches, they're not giving you information to go out. They're kind of holding you hostage to some degree. And that might not be the correct word as hostage, but that's, as I spoke to this individual, that's the way they had come off. Like whoever they were talking to were not giving them enough information and not enough motivation to get out there, and I see that that's one of the things that's different from your walk and who you've spoken to, these mentors, these persons that has given information to you to move on to your next idea. As you stated, is an idea problem, not a money problem. I think that's some of our other challenges, that people are not always original, or even in their originality, they're too busy looking at other people and not understanding what the process really is, to answer those other questions that people are struggling with. So I think there's too many things that you've talked about today that, my listeners, the audience out there, to motivate them. I'm just flabbergasted. That's all I can say. It's overwhelming because it's a lot that you've put out there today, and I thank you very much.
You're welcome. And as a final thought, because you said something there, sort of struck a light bulb in my mind, if you will. Because you mentioned about questions and how coaches are with questions and things like that. And my mentor said the following. He said, "Don't worry about the answers." He said, "The answers are always there. They always will be there." He said, "Everyone wants to find the answer to this and the answer to that." He says it's backwards. Mm-hmm. That's not the thing to look for. The answers always are there. They always were there.
Right.
He said, and they always will be. He said, focus on asking the right questions. Mm-hmm. He says it's about the question, not the answer. When you ask the wrong question, you get the wrong answer. Mm-hmm. And he said, and most people go through life asking the wrong questions. Then they're surprised when they get the wrong answer, when that's nothing more than what they asked for the answer for. He said, focus on asking the right question.
Wow. Again, thank you very, very much. I hope that, those of you that are listening, you have taken down your notes and apply it, in some way, shape, or form, whether it's at your job or your journey through entrepreneurship, whatever it may be. Even some of these nuggets can be applied to raising your family and things like that. it's not so hard. I guess that's the best way to put it. It's not for, hey, I have to be on this rung of life. You can apply it in every aspect of your life. And I thank you very much for sharing today.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
But I do have one question, though, that I ask every listener, every guest that I have on the show is my would you rather question. So my question today would be, would you rather face a fork in the road or be forced to pick between three doors?
I'll take the fork any day of the week, and here's why. The three doors involves guessing.
Mm-hmm.
With the forks, I can look down that road a little bit and start to ask myself the right questions. And part of those questions are, where does that road lead? Where's that road going? Where's that road headed? So I could look down the fork, and then I could look over to the other one, and I could get a little bit of a beginning of a perspective on which direction that fork is going. And I can start to look in front of myself a little bit as opposed to a blind guess as to which door. So I'll take the fork any day of the week.
Wow. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing that. Now, before we end off, would you like to share any of your social media or websites to our listeners today?
Two places. They should, anyone that wants detailed information, we have great free training information at our YouTube site. It basically, we view our YouTube as a training ground. For those that want to form a giver community around them. The first top playlist is how to form your own givers community. It's 21 2-minute clips. And the very first 2-minute clip is, what's the difference between a giver's community and a taker community? And then we walk all the way through for those that want to form what's commonly referred to as a mastermind group. So go to our YouTube channel. It's all one word, Givers University, no spaces. Just type that into YouTube and you'll be brought right to it. Second is go to our website, giversuniversity.com. Sign up for our free newsletter. We send out one email a week every Thursday. We don't blow up your email with email information and all that kind of stuff. Every Thursday, we send out a 5-minute read that's called the Giver's Toolbox, and we provide a new tool each week that they can add to the relationship toolbox, and that comes out on Thursday morning once a week. And they just go to our website, giversuniversity.com, and sign up for the newsletter right there, and we're happy to share and give all that with them. And Maurice, I think you've got a great show, and thank you so much for having me on as a guest.
Sure, no problem. Everybody, please make sure that you visit those links. His social media will also be in the description down below. And we thank you very much for listening today. Talk to y'all soon. See you later.
Loved what you've heard on this week's episode? Well, the answer is simple. It would mean the world to us if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and feedback. Spreading the word really is the best way to grow our podcast and achieve even greater things. Thank you.